Things are a-changing. It's happening. And we are here to tell you all about what's going on in our gardens at the beginning of the season change from summer to fall.
No!
In most people's opinions, the greatest season, but not so much mine.
No!
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. Okay. You got like a brontosaurus outside your window or something?
I tell you, it reminds me, though, I need to call and make an appointment to have my car checked out. I picked up my uncle, this is a couple of weeks back, and he's like, it's running kind of loud, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, damn it, it is, right? So that was literally not even like a big truck, like maybe one of those, is it 4x4s? You know, the older Bronco kind of trucks?
Yeah, they're loud.
Yeah, that's what that was. I saw it.
An OJ truck?
Yeah, I saw it drive up the street. And I was like, that's loud. I'm wondering if the podcast is going to pick that up. Then I saw it come back down. And I'm like, yep. When your eyes perked up, I said, goodness. This is...
Yeah, we had to pause just for a second on that one.
This is urban living, though, man. I'm in the middle of a big city.
It is what it is, you know? There's not but so much you can do or eliminate from it.
Here we are.
So, we were talking before the podcast. You were supposed to remind me of something, and I remembered
I did
when
too.
I stepped away.
Yeah.
You did too?
I did.
Okay. So so we're adding in, if you haven't noticed, we're going to add in listener questions, and we have one. So I'm going to read it off, and then it's quiz time.
All right.
Are you ready?
I am, but I just want to note that because you receive the question and read the question in advance, I'm at somewhat of a disadvantage because I'm hearing it right here for the first time. But I'm ready, man. It's go time. Let's go.
Don't see here. See, now you're going to make me pause. You can't be justifying what the outcome is before you even know what. At least wait and get defensive until after it's read.
I'm saying you're going to hear fresh Batavia, top of her head, experience oozing out, where Ben has had time to consult his buddy, P. Allen Smith.
Yes, right. My man, pots and pans. All right. Hey, I absolutely love y'all. I have a quick question for you. Not sure if either one of you have had issues with this, but I'm in Alabama, and the bees, which, by the way, the fact that she typed y'all means you're in Alabama. The bees have made nests, mainly yellow jackets, and some other weird red wasp I've never seen before. The bees are great, but not when they have made a home in some of your veggies. Do y'all know a way of discouraging bees to make a nest in the middle of a crop? I have them in my Brussels sprouts and kale, and I've tried to bury the nest, but they just keep rebuilding. I don't want to kill them, just encourage them to make a home elsewhere. Thanks, guys.
So this is incredible because in all the years of my outdoor, gardening and other activities, I ran for a number of years, and I think maybe I've been stung by a bee maybe once, but guess what happened this weekend?
You got stung.
God dang on right? And so when people visit my garden, they're all like, common pedestrians are all like, oh my gosh, there's a bee. And I'm all calm. I'm like, the bee whisperer, I kind of keep an eye on where they are and I move about. And out of nowhere, so it's been really wet here. And I actually saw something recently at the end of the season, the summer season. They're basically on the search to get nectar to fill up their bellies for the coming winter, right? So They're just all over the place in my yard. And again, they don't touch me. mind my business, they mind theirs. Until I don't know if I had been teasing them or not, but I wasn't even near a plant. I was just walking back on the porch and I didn't see it or even hear it, but I felt it. And I'm just like, damn it. So then it
was a bee?
A bee. Well, you know what? I'm assuming it was a bee and not a wasp or something. I didn't see it, but I could see the spot that it stung me like immediately. And I was like, you know what we do, Googling, what are you supposed to do with a bee sting? My joke was, is it white wine, red wine, or beer? What do I use to treat it? So.
Nothing.
Yeah, I'm fine. This is days later. I mean, the arm still looks like it's going to be usable. We'll find out, though.
It's not going to fall off.
Yeah, do I need to cure this? The arm? Like,
yeah. You know how to cure it, right?
Yeah, clearly. Make sure I keep it dry.
Way back in the day when I was a mechanic, I'd get cut and my boss would come up and he'd be like, we got to cure the meat. And it's only when you cut it, I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you got to cure the meat. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And he'd pull out a salt shaker and pour it right on the cut and it hurt like a biatch.
Yeah.
I don't know if it worked or not, but I'd be like, you cut? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to cure the meat.
Oh.
And I think he was just trying to torture me.
When we get done, though, I'm going to call you so you can listen to my car when it turns on, so you can tell me what's happening there.
I knew I shouldn't have said anything, but I will.
But in all, that's a story because it did just happen. I'm glad that you had a chance to read this and perhaps, respond and research. I don't know. I've never had this.
Responded.
Yeah, I've never had this before.
And it was interesting. I read that and then I went to a couple other places just in general browsing and there was like a rash of people having this issue. And so, I mean, I responded to her. And really, so the way it works is yellow jackets like to build nests in the ground.
Oh, okay.
As do wasps. So if you don't catch it in time, you're kind of screwed, right?
Yeah.
So my advice to her was like, if it's really bad right now, I don't see a whole lot you can do, especially because you don't want to kill them. And the fact that it's, I can't remember now, but I believe it was under her garden. So you don't want to spray anything in there to kill them. And I respect the fact that she didn't want to kill them.
Yeah, good for her, yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's enough problems as there is. That being said, I suggested spraying neem oil on it, to see if that. I haven't gotten an update yet, but just to kind of see if that worked because it would the taste is displeasurable to them. Yeah. So it might encourage them to go elsewhere. And I know there are organic treatments for them, but I don't know the names of them. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna be straight up. So my son is obsessed with Billy the Exterminator. And he's always using, I'm serious. And I mean, when I was watching it back in the day, that's where I learned how to trap animals that got in my garden and remove them. But he uses like a chrysanthemum oil.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So he uses that as a friendly,
deterrent.
I believe if I'm not mistaken, it does kill them. But you can spray it in your face and stuff like that. I mean, it's just oil of the chrysanthemum flower. But other than that, like I really don't know much else to do other than stay vigilant and see, catch it early because you can see a wasp building a nest.
Yeah.
So
I may have a source that has some additional detail. Well, let me know if you hear back from her, and I will reach out to see if I'm going to be able to keep my arm. Right.
I think you'll be okay.
Two, it's my right arm too. That's my dominant arm. I had started years ago wanting to be. I'm not even going to try to say the word where you can use both hands because I'm just going to get tongue tied. But I was like, I should start using my left arm more, and I didn't keep up with it, and now, I mean, this could be it. But anyway,
left-handed people are freaks.
My boss is a left-handed person. See? And you're exactly right.
No, I know a lot of people that are left-handed. Or actually, I do know a lot of people are left-handed. For there to be such a small percentage, And they're pretty cool, but I always joke with them. They're like, "That's not funny." Yeah. I'm like, "Come on, get over it."
Yeah, especially depending on how old that person is, because there's like this whole thing around children basically being forced to write with their other hand, because it was deemed, you're not okay if you're writing with your left hand.
Now, if you're left-handed, I will not sit next to you at the dinner table, though. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that now.
Oh, that's so funny! I have a good buddy and a colleague of mine, and we were doing like a world tour for work back in 2015, 2016, and we're talking about like long haul flights, so we were going over to London, and he's left-handed, so every time we would make travel arrangements, there was this whole thing of like, make sure that I get this seat and he gets this seat, and I'm just like, oh good gosh.
Right. And if you guys hear me coughing, it's not COVID. My allergies are kicking in because the seasons are changing, so don't freak out. But so there's a lot of stuff going on in the garden.
Well, before we get into the garden, I just want to say thanks for the question. I don't love hearing about problems, but I'm so intrigued about things that are going on, even if they're common to me and other people's gardens. Because while I've seen, bees building nests, and mostly it's birds for me that I have trouble with when it comes to nests being in odd places, I've never heard of that. So it's just kind of one thing to put into my garden journal in my mind.
Yeah, hopefully we don't speak it into fruition for our own gardens, though.
Yeah.
That's the only issue I have. Yeah. I seem to have done that this year.
Yeah.
It's been a real issue for me. But no, I'm with you. I don't know if I would have ever thought of that, but I could totally see it being a problem.
Yeah, now that she's mentioned it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like last year I had an infestation of fire ants in my garden. So it was like about this time of last year, I couldn't even dig in my garden at all. It was rough. Yeah. So, which led me on the whole massacre of ants, which I will kill an ant quick.
I actually have an infestation of army ants.
Those are the little black ones, right?
Yeah. I mean,
little piss ants.
I'm calling them army ants. I think what I have are the little black ants, and they are driving me crazy.
Yeah. Are they around your okra?
No, they're like on my porch, like trying to make their way into the kitchen. Yeah. They're
trying to come in before it gets cold.
Yeah, I guess so.
What you looking at out the window, man?
Oh, I'm looking at the white cabbage moth. Like, I'm trying to, do you see me? I'm like, you're
just sitting out there looking out the window. I'm like, podcast is over here.
Yeah. Here. It's so pretty though. This window is to my front yard. And so I still have hibiscus blooming, which, it's pretty cool. They started it at the beginning of August. The ones I have are late bloomers. That's kind of funny. Sorry. So anyway, they're late bloomers, and I thought they had spent all of their blooms, but no, I still got a couple of them. Which actually remind me, you won't remind me because I won't remember either, but I'm sure it'll come around. I actually have a really good idea for next year's garden for okra. But anyhow, we'll talk about that.
Okay. I'll remind you of that.
Well, yeah, because my issue with okra. I can't stay away from it, but it doesn't do me any good,
So what's going on in your garden?
So I have potatoes. I harvested the last container of potatoes this morning just so I'd be able to give a very current update. And I was pulling it up. I basically harvested 5 different containers. I was growing them for the very first time. Oh, shoot. Rewind. What's going on in my garden? Ask me again.
What's going on in your garden, Batavia?
I have potatoes.
Oh, there it is.
I'm telling you, we need a podcast assistant. I'm already falling off on the job.
We need a dedicated bell ringer.
Yeah, man.
That's your only job.
All right. So 5 containers. I planted them there are 3 different sets of potatoes. I planted them on 3 different days, like the very end of.
Hold on, wait, stop.
No? Okay.
You said your potatoes are in containers?
I grew them in containers.
What kind of containers?
I'm not sure of the question. I used 20-gallon grow bags. I used 1 grow bag.
That's the question I needed
and then
to hear.
I had 4 other of these big kind of totes I got from Lowe's. They're 20 gallons as well. They have handles on either side. They're blue and not very attractive, so they're in the backyard. So yeah, I grew them in
That's perfect.
those
That's
containers.
what I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want data.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now on my spreadsheet.
I knew you had a spreadsheet, you freak of nature.
Listen, now I'm just trying to tell you, you organize yourself the way that you organize yourself, and I organize myself the way that I do.
I just want to tell everybody a little insight behind the podcast. We have a monthly meeting about planning for the podcast, and we share a spreadsheet. And I watch Batavia work on it, and my little icon sits still, and she's dancing all around, got all this stuff going on. It's crazy. So it's no shocker that she's got a spreadsheet about her potato harvest.
I've never, ever met a spreadsheet that I didn't either love immediately or find a way to love. So I started off in, let me see if I can pull it up here. I started it off in May of 2020, of course. So I planted my russet potatoes. I had 3 containers of russet potatoes. And then I planted red chieftain, like a red skin potato. So I planted that in, it's April 27th, May 12th, and June 6th. Those were my planting dates. Right. Okay. So the russet potatoes are long season, and the red chieftain and the gold, the regular Yukon Gold kind of potato, that was a mid season. So I'm going to pull up the figures. I'm very pleased. Like, I actually have a video coming out where I may or may not be holding back tears. Because I mean, it's, you know how this whole year with root vegetables have been for me, and you know how, kind of my fear of, those root vegetables go. So I'm very pleased with the harvest overall. I will say though, the 5th container left me with a womp, womp, womp moment. Like,
that happens.
Literally, I held the potatoes in my hand, the potato harvest.
I need to know, how did the grow bags produce? What did you get out of them?
Alrighty, so grow bag.
Because I want to do I'm thinking about doing grow bags next year, but I want you, and in particular, the Purple Thumb Gardener, to tell me before I'm basing my decision off you two young ladies. So
yeah, and they're pretty reasonably priced as well. So
they're so cheap.
Yeah, so this is actually the 2nd year that I've grown in grow bags, but not for. I did flowers last year. So last year were flowers, and I reused one of those bags. It sat outside on my front porch or my front yard all year long, like all winter long. So froze over, thawed out. It's durable. So 1, just from a durability standpoint, I think it's worth the investment. 2, it was hard for me to gauge kind of the water and the wetness in it. It isn't exactly like a container, like a regular plastic container. But I'm going to go off and say, if you want to grow in grow bags, go for it, especially if that grow bag can sit inside like real dirt, because whatever those plants are, if you have big roots, it'll just go straight through the bag and start connecting to that dirt. For the potatoes,
will it rip the bag?
Depending on how big the roots are. Okay. So for my potatoes, they didn't go that far down, right? So the bottom of the bag is intact. I also have sweet potatoes, which I haven't harvested yet in grow bags. So I'll let you know when that comes up and how I feel about that. But the 20-gallon grow bags, I only had 1 for the white potatoes. I got, let me count, 3, 6, 3, next to nothing. 3 pounds for bag 1, container 1, 3 pounds, 6 pounds of potatoes, 3 pounds again. And then I got I basically got my seed potatoes back in edible potatoes.
Okay. Well, hold on. How many potatoes did you put in? How many plants did you have in each bag?
No, I'm going to say maybe 5. So I think I have some pictures of this. Maybe I did 4 around the circumference of the bag, and then 1 in the middle.
And 1 in the middle.
Yeah.
Could you have done more? Spacing wise, or
looking at how the plants grew, no. So they were really full. The containers were really full. The last container that I got nothing from, I really believe that it is related to the damage that the beetle had. Remember the Colorado potato beetle? That was the last thing that I planted, which means that was the youngest plant. So, all right, finally found it. I'm I'm going to give you the stats real quick. Container number 1, which was the grow bag, russet potato planted in April, harvested 120 days later. I got 3 pounds, 3 ounces of potatoes. The next container was the blue 20-gallon container, planted on the same day, harvested 120 days later. I got 3 pounds, 12 ounces. So I got slightly more out of the blue container than I did the grow bag. Right. Okay. I don't know that makes a difference, like the growing medium there. The third container I planted on the same date, in April. I waited like 140 days based on my calculation here. Didn't get any more potatoes. It was 3 pounds, 8 ounces. So almost, this is what, 3.5 pounds. But then I had the jackpot. So that was all off of one package of seed potatoes, russet potatoes, long season. So then I had the red chieftain, which I ordered online. And that's, again, red skin potato. I only had them planted, let's see, I think it's 2 containers. So the first container for the red chieftain produced 6 pounds of potatoes, which is super cool. I harvested those. Those are mid-season variety. I harvested those after 110 days. I went to the next container for red chieftain, and it was 120 days. So I waited longer. Didn't matter. I got 3.5 pounds out of that one. And then the very...
So why did you get double out of one container? That's what I want to know.
Who knows? Who knows? I can look back at some of the footage. Play the footage? No.
Roll it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I got.
That's a
significant
question.
Difference too.
You need to figure out how you got double out of that. So when you pulled out the grow bags and you started digging in there, it wasn't chock full of potatoes, right?
No.
Okay, because I've seen stuff where they're like, you open up and it's like there ain't no more dirt in there, it's all potatoes.
Nope, that wasn't my experience at all. First off, and we had briefly talked about this, I don't have the measurements. Maybe it's like a foot tall, those containers, maybe even taller. So think
no. Go ahead. I'm sorry. My mind's working faster than you're talking.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So I should have brought the container in. The potatoes were maybe halfway down. So I dumped the containers over and, I kind of started, digging around, but more than half of the soil had basically no potatoes at all. So the potatoes only grew using about half of the soil that was in the container. So my containers, and I'm talking about deep, not necessarily wide. So I think they would have grown, they had the potential to grow more if it was wider. But what I've learned as a part of this is depth. That much depth isn't needed for potatoes, or at least in this container, it wasn't.
Well, okay. So that's what my question is though. When you planted your potatoes, did you continue to put, to pile the dirt around them, or did you just put them in and let them grow?
I did both methods. So now I haven't, listen, I just harvested the last container. I don't have all of my data here. So one or two of them. Yeah, 1 or 2 of them, I used the method where I just stuff the potato straight down, where I fill the container all the way up into the top and just put the seed potato straight down. All of the other ones I used the mounting method or mounding. So I basically put the soil mixture in. I used a third peat moss, a third compost, a third potting mix. All of that's bag stuff, right? And so I mixed all of that up, and then I filled the container about 2/3 ish and planted my seed potatoes, covered it, and let the potato leaves grow up. And then I continued to add soil. So the majority of these containers have that. I'm going to look back. It'd be really great if the 6-pounder, the one I got the 6 pounds off of, was the one that I basically just stuffed the potatoes down and I didn't do the mounding. But we'll see. We'll roll the video.
I'd be surprised if that was the case. Yeah. And I think that's like, so what a lot of people will do is you'll start with the container lower and then continue to mound. And I think that's how you get the potatoes all the way through the whole container.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think I think the problem is though, as you mound, when you put that dirt up on that stem, that starts that clock over, I believe.
Well, they're supposed to grow off of the stem. So we know that. And how long the stem is should determine. So basically it's from the point of where that seed potato is to the top of that soil line. They're growing in between and off of those stems. So the idea of me filling the soil to the top and stuffing the potato, it just took longer for that stem to emerge, right? Because it had to grow through all of that soil. But it shouldn't, if I did the same measurement, if I did it, basically a arm's length going from my fist to my elbow down, that was about the distance between the top of the container to where I put the seed potato, you'd think it'd be the same, as far as the placement goes, and in turn, as far as the growth. Very interesting. Yeah.
So now I have to find out what the next person says.
Yeah, the purple thumb gardener. Yeah. I mean, she's had some really nice looking potatoes too. I will say though, out of all of the potatoes, the size of the potatoes were pretty small. So I had just literally a handful that were like, for the russets, I thought, when you see russets in the store, they're like known for baked potato size, right?
Yeah.
Not it. Not it. Yeah.
So you probably should have left them longer, maybe?
I don't know. So I've been doing a bunch of research, meaning a bunch of Google searches on at what point the potatoes actually stop growing. So remember the whole idea of my plants never flowered. So that's one bit of information.
Right, but that's not a bad. That's not that doesn't. That doesn't make that much of a difference, because from what I understand, and I've had this before, is like sweet potatoes don't always flower. So let me know if you're done so I can finish my thoughts there. Yeah. Okay. Was I rude?
No. This is you and I, man. It's all good. So I was just pointing out that fact. So because it never flowered, I never had that gauge of, after it flowers, then that 2 to 3 week period of time. Like I never had that as a line in the sand. So I had to basically use how long these plants had been growing. They had basically died, right? So I didn't have the big, beautiful leaves anymore, but they hadn't completely died where it looked like, how around Halloween, everything's like all brown and crispy. It did look like that, but we're approaching on 100 plus days, especially for mid-season,
right? Which,
I think it's anywhere between 70 some and 90 some days. So I didn't want the potatoes to rot, and we're getting into the wetter part of the year for me. When I was saying I was researching how long potatoes, at what point does the potato plant stop growing? So once the point of the leaves have died or are dying, there's not any more potato growth that's happening from what I've researched. It instead allows that potato to get, more firm, if you will. So the ones I took out, so you're drying it out, you're holding back water. The ones that I took out today, like the 3 or 4 potatoes that I got out of the last container, when I washed them, I ate them for breakfast because there was no sense in me, curing those. But when I washed them, you can see the skin coming off of them, right? Where my other potatoes were a bit more taut because it's, again, been very wet. I'd been covering the container so it wasn't getting like the monsoon of rain that we've been getting lately, because I knew I was going to harvest them this week. So anyway, yeah, man, I mean, you can knock me over with a feather. Potatoes success.
Yeah, I'm still waiting on my sweet potatoes, man.
Sweet potatoes or white potatoes or both? You're still waiting.
Okay, so I put in sweet potatoes and I put in white potatoes, and the sweet potatoes overtook the white potatoes. If I get one white potato, I call it a success because they just choked them out. But I'm in the process of not watering now, getting them prepared for this. So I don't know if I have about a week left. And then I might shoot them some water. It depends on how they look. I haven't quite decided because they're still pretty warm. So I'd like to give them a little bit more time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But that's very interesting. Potatoes take a lot of space. When they grow. So putting them in a container is a great idea, but I just don't know. I'm not sold. You know what I mean? I haven't seen enough.
To be frank, my biggest concern, I'm just looking for the method that I use just for my peace of mind now. My biggest concern for the potatoes before I knew I was going to harvest potatoes, like when I first dumped the very first container, I basically dumped it and started pulling off the dirt at the very bottom where there was nothing. And I was just like trying to, prepare myself. Like, you're not going to cry, girl. You're not going to cry. And so obviously as I got closer to the stem, I started seeing potatoes. But it's the soil. It's the expense of the soil for me. So I literally in my spreadsheet have, plant date, harvested date, total number of days, ounces. How much did I pay for these seed potatoes? We're letting you inside of Batavia's mind. Like trying to balance out the expense I haven't even added the soil to it. And it's not a big deal that, you have to buy the soil to plant them, but it's the big deal about now how I reuse this soil, so.
I'm going to make a prediction.
Okay, here we go.
I think for the amount that you paid to grow those 20 pounds of potatoes roughly that you got, if I'm not mistaking my quick math, you probably could have gone to the store and bought maybe 300 pounds of tomatoes.
Potatoes.
And I'm being serious.
No, I couldn't have. I actually looked and
potatoes are $5 a bag.
Yeah, so I actually did some research, and not counting today, I went to like organic potatoes, so I grew them organically. I think without the soil, I broke even. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm positive.
What kind of soil did you use?
I use organic potting mix and
certified organic.
Absolutely, with Batavia stamp. So
here we go. Hold on, wait. Let me roll my shorts up because it's getting deep in here.
So by my count, the street value, no, in all seriousness, in Chicago, I would have paid about $26 for the quantity for the 20 pounds I have of potatoes. And let's just say I paid just under that for the seed potatoes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So it's kind of hit or miss. You know what I mean? It's interesting. And I love that you're doing that. I really do, because it's important that if you're growing your food, that you're not like getting yourself in a deep, huge financial hole trying to get a damn potato. You know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous.
So, but to your point, potatoes are, I feel like, reasonably priced in the stores. And if it wasn't my absolute favorite thing, it's one of my top 5 favorite foods or types of foods or meals. I would say, all right, great job. You grew potatoes this year, and I'd move on. But it is one of my favorite things. So now it's about improving my gains, right? So is this the best growing medium for me in these containers? So I'm going to grow potatoes again. Don't get it twisted now. It's going to happen again. And
you know what you do?
I'm going to leverage my 401k, and I'm going to invest in this dream.
Grow a quarter of the tomatoes and use the rest for potatoes.
You know what? I almost like went rated R. Like
I know you did.
I was pulling it back, man.
I know you
which
did.
Which reminds me, I'm gonna give you another quick update. I did account for this episode, not including the tomatillos. I ended up with 13 planted tomatoes. 10.
That's it?
Yeah, 13 total. 10 in ground or in a raised bed, and 3 in containers. So
that's not bad.
No, not that bad. And I'm also going to, at some point, since it's not going to get to 80 degrees today, I'm probably, once I wrap up with work today, going to pull up one of my last cherry tomato plants.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up all my tomato plants today.
Oh, no, my tomatoes are still kicking butt. But the cherry tomato, you can see that it's diseased, and I'm not going to make the mistake of letting it spread.
Well, you know how mine was. Yeah. So I wanted to see if it would come back, and it did come back. But at this point, it's like, man, what are you doing? Yeah. You're wasting almost 3/4 of a bed just to try and get like a couple tomatoes. So, it's just like, call it good, call it what it is, and move on.
But it did produce more tomatoes after the disease, right?
I got 2 more. Yeah, I got 2 more. So, and the disease is actually starting to come back.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's like, man, if I have to trim out more, then it's just like, you're just in this never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
And so that's where the tough decision has to come in. But I'm in a perfect time now where I can go. At this point, I probably can't start seeds. I could, but I wouldn't get it as soon of a harvest as I would like. So I'll probably buy some seedlings to drop in, but it's the right decision to make.
For tomatoes or just some other fall crop?
Some other fall crop, you know what I mean? Which I prefer anyways over tomatoes. Yeah. So, I looked at, and I was looking at pictures and looking at what I was harvesting in July versus this year, and I was like a month behind for some reason. So I was way behind in my tomato harvest for this year. So,
which is interesting because you started earlier, right?
That's why. That's why I was behind.
Yeah. You started earlier, but the plants were smaller than you would normally plant.
They were smaller, and they were like 4 times as big last year. So, you know, and honestly, it was because I was sitting here messing around with the podcast, and I was like, oh, I need to go start mine. And I knew I was a month late starting them.
Yeah.
So, but that's okay. You know, I still got plenty of tomatoes, you know, and even after I had to cut everything off, I still harvested tomatoes for another 2 weeks. You know, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, anyways, that's for a different podcast. But no, things are going in the garden. But the question for me is not what's going on in my garden. It's what's going to go on in my garden.
Ooh, okay. Future state?
Future state.
No, hold on.
You ready?
I got my finger right above the ringer, the bell.
Papa Bear got a greenhouse. I know.
Oh, let me stop the ringing. Okay, all right, sorry. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I'm pumped. So.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. All right, so you don't have it up yet, right?
Hell no.
Okay, all right. Because I'm basically like, we need to wrap this thing up because you need to get me on video so I can watch this thing live, right? Oh, that's so freaking cool.
No, it's it's something that I've been dreaming about for many, many years and never really pulled the trigger on it. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, one day. And I'm actually waiting for hurricane season to die off.
Oh yeah, good idea.
And then I'm gonna put it up, and because for me in the summertime, it's not gonna be much use
because it's far too hot. Yeah.
I bet it'd be 150 degrees in there easy. It didn't matter what you vent in it. So. But I've got a plan on how to plant it and everything, so I'm curious to see like how this is going to play out.
I mean, this is very separate from your garden beds. Like this is going to be a whole separate setup, right?
Actually,
or it's going to go on top of the garden beds.
It's going to go on top of one of the wild beds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've made that decision, so it's not huge. It's not like some.
It doesn't
massive
have to be though.
thing.
Yeah.
No, it's 6 feet by 8 feet. So,
I mean, does this literally put you in December if you wanted?
Year round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, year round growing certain things.
Sure.
Okay. So it's not like you just put up a greenhouse, you're like, I'm going to grow tomatoes all year round. Hell yeah. It doesn't work quite that way unless you want heaters and all that stuff. But, I got to build it. So I've got it in boxes and, we'll see how it goes, man. You know, it's gonna be an uphill battle. First of all, my dad wants to help me build it, which is always a good argument waiting to happen.
So cute already.
No, it's not cute actually. But so I plan to plant peas in it for the winter.
Like peas that trail, that runners. Okay.
Yeah. So in the back side, because I'm measuring sunlight right now as we speak, and as of right now I'm at 4 hours of sunlight, I think, and I believe it's probably about done now, so I'm probably getting about 4.5 hours.
Oh, and the time hasn't changed yet either.
The time has not changed, but the leaves are still on the trees.
Okay,
you see what I'm saying?
No,
so
I don't.
I'm so as the leaves fall, you'll get more light.
Sunlight. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? So that being said, and then plus if you're growing like lettuce and stuff, it doesn't need as much sunlight. So, I can grow lettuce and whatnot, and then I can start seedlings. I can also put a light in there if I wanted to. So there's a lot of stuff that's workable, but I'm not totally sold on the location yet. And it is the best location physically, but maybe not theoretically. Or maybe it's the other way around.
It's the furthest from your house when it comes to the garden area, though, right?
No.
Oh, it's closer?
It's the one that has the least amount of light. That's the problem.
Okay. No, I'm asking about like So how close are you? How close is this in proximity to your home?
It's close. It's the closest garden to the house.
Oh, okay. In my mind, I have it pictured differently. I have where the wild things live, like way out where they live in my mind. So, okay.
Well, so if you walk out my back door, the wild things is if you walk back to my gardens before you get to the main gardens, it's off to the side, but it's back into the woods.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like how often you'll actually get there. So I have
I'll be in that bitch every day.
I have a far less official what happens if you want to grow food when it's cold outside. So I set up this remember the wire racks. So I went to Menards, because Menards for me is always going to be slightly cheaper than my Home Depots or Lowe's, no matter where I go within Illinois, right? Menards is always going to be that discount. They always have this rebate offer. And so I went there to check out their wire racks because I wanted to do two things. One, move a wire rack into the garage, move the one that was already into the garage back into the basement to use to store food, right? So my potatoes, all 20 pounds of them, are curing in the basement now on that rack. They had been stacked up on milk crates before. So the smaller rack was moved out of the garage and back into the basement, and the newly purchased rack, shelving unit basically is what it is, was over the course of a day and a half as I built the configuration with 5 shelves up and said, nah, that didn't gonna work. So now basically it's 2 shelving units sitting right next to each other. It almost creates like a workspace, which is kind of cool. But my idea, and we'll see how far this gets, because I have grow lights, is to bring a grow light inside of the garage, or 3. And so we'll talk about this more offline, but I'm thinking for those super, super cold nights. So we know before it gets into constant freezing, the garage is going to be warmer than it will be outside when it gets to 32 or whatever. So it'll be warmer inside of the garage. So I'm thinking of doing 2 things. One, some of the smaller containers that I'm growing things like lettuce in that I just started, moving them into the garage once that weather really gets cold. Because although lettuce is a little bit more hardy, it still isn't going to survive repeated freezes, right? And then I'm thinking that depending on how that goes, once it gets super cold, remember when the water bottle freezes, wrapping some of the unlimited plastic that I have on top of the shelving unit to insulate it a little bit more.
Hold that thought.
I will.
Just hold that thought. Yeah. Until another day.
Yeah.
We can set that up easily.
So this is not greenhouse. This is like I have to like baby step things. And
no, that is greenhouse.
Well, no, the reason why I'm saying like it's not like I want your greenhouse. I haven't seen it, but I want it. I want you to clone it with a 3D printer, and then ship it to me. It's going to cost me more in shipping than anything else. So I want that in my future world. Right now, I have most of these tools, right? I have most of the material, with the exception of the thing that I just bought. And I want to know, like, if I'm really in it. Will I really be going outside in December to check on vegetables? In January to check on vegetables?
I toyed with that for a long time. Before we got it, and my whole theory is if it's warmer in there, sure, I'll go out there, but if it's just as cold as it is outside, then I'm not going to go. And it's obviously going to be warmer because the sun and the way it's designed will heat it up. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did not get a high-end greenhouse. You know what I mean? Because, and the biggest thing for me are winds. In my area, I have to worry about winds, so it is a gamble. The only benefit is if a hurricane comes and destroys it, my homeowner's insurance will pay for it.
Oh, cool.
But, I emailed a company and I was like, hey, and I told them where I lived and everything and a hurricane prone. They sent me a quote, $10,000.
For the payout?
For a greenhouse that can withstand, good heavy winds and stuff. And I told him, I was like, man, and I was talking to my mom about it and I was like, dude, if I grew lettuce in there in the wintertime, it would be like 60,000 heads of lettuce to combat the price of, you would never get your money's worth out of it, you know? So we went with a much, much, much cheaper option, but it is a legit greenhouse. It vents at the top. It's got a door and everything. I'm going to have to take extra steps to anchor it down. And then when a hurricane comes, it's just going to be pray that it doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there's steps you can take. Like you can take the panels out of it.
Oh, okay. So let the air go through.
I could very well probably take the panels out of it. So at least the wind would just whip right through it. As long as a tree doesn't fall on it, then we're good. So, which I'll go out and cut some trees down beforehand to try and eliminate that issue.
Yeah.
But that's the big news right now. So
that's huge, dude. That's absolutely huge.
Yeah, it's basically a dream come true.
Yeah.
So, you know, you always think about stuff like that, but when a big purchase like that, it's hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have the space, but I think that you're going to get me nostalgic, because a part of what we always talk about is how we're trying to bend just a little bit nature, right? And the truth of the matter is, we aren't trying to bend nature. We're trying to kind of bend our garden worlds to, you know, exist with what we've been dealt with, you know, like, so you live in an area where, you know, weather and really, you know, kind of dangerous weather impacts your garden every year. And so even if you just look at the garden as it is today, you know, I mean, since I've known you, we've gone through one storm already. Yeah. And so you want to take this next step, but you kind of have to consider it. Like, I thought about that briefly for even with Chicago and the winds and how the weather is. And specifically because in my backyard, I don't have really much to stake it to, like a greenhouse to, because my backyard primarily is concrete, right? You know, so
that's even better because you can stake it right to the concrete.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah. Oh, get my big tools out, man.
Yeah. See, so for me, I don't have that option. So I have to get huge pieces of wood and sink them into the ground and build a foundation and then screw it to that. And then I'm getting hurricane straps to put over it and then screw those in to the ground.
Yeah.
So then that should help improve it so it doesn't, because I mean, essentially you can build this thing and before you put the panels on, you can just pick it up and walk it somewhere because it's so lightweight. Yeah. So, you know, it's definitely steps to take, but like, I'm not above just putting it over a garden, but like I said, in the summertime for me, it wouldn't do any good. For you, it would probably do pretty well in the summertime for you. You could keep it cooler than here.
I think for me, even that April to May period would be worth its weight in gold. So I was chatting online with another gardener. I'm trying to think of where she's located, but she said, "Oh, it's interesting that you're getting tomatoes in August." Like she had said, and I may have mentioned this before, that she had just pulled her tomatoes out. Right. You know, and so I was like, well, I didn't plant mine until June. Right. And so I was researching back when it comes to our weather. And you know that I wanted to start earlier this year, ended up planting later. But I still, if I go back to May, there's still that risk. You put some plastic or a greenhouse on top of it, I've basically mitigated that risk. So I'm getting tomatoes 4 to 6 weeks earlier. And, you know, part of the trouble. So, I mean, all of these are thoughts in the future. And I think maybe we're basically talking about our 2021 episodes. But thinking about things like me pulling a tomato plant now, if I would have thought about this 2 or 3 weeks ago, that space, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, I didn't get that many more cherry tomatoes off of the plant I'm going to pull, right? I could have had that space for something else. And I'll be able to take that forward to my thought because the plant's on its way out if it lasts another 2 weeks before it dies or infects something else. But think about had I planted it a month earlier, 3 weeks earlier even. So anywho, there are some ideas. Right now I have my hands full with kind of all of the things I've implemented this year and some of the changes. So I'm good. But if someone, like if a FedEx or UPS driver tosses a greenhouse package over my fence into my yard, then I'm going to make it work, baby.
No. And I mean, I've been thinking, cause at this point it's like, I'm just literally waiting time out before I can put it up. And I'm like, what is it good for? You know what I mean? Like for me, what am I going to use it for? And it would be to grow greens and, you know, all your cold weather crops in the wintertime. But then I was thinking like, because apparently like if you set up an unheated greenhouse, it basically puts you into the next higher zone for that space. So, and I'm not sure if I'm in zone 8B now or zone 9. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, I think that, so I've read on this too. I think you basically go from 8A to potentially 9A. You know, and if it was heated, that would move you 2 zones. But it being unheated,
and I'm not gonna heat it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do like passive heating in it and stuff, but I'm not running electricity out to it. But
there are extension cords.
There are, but there's also an electric bill.
Yeah, here, man.
So, and that's the silent killer is your electric and your water bill.
Yeah.
But the thing is I can plant zucchini in there a month earlier then.
Yeah, that's huge.
And not only that, I have less of a chance of getting a vine borer in there. Less of a chance.
But no, that's the thing. We talked about this for potatoes in particular, and looking at our calendars and saying like, I was reading about this because again, I'm just obsessed with the idea of what can you plant after potatoes have grown in a space, you know, and when it comes to the Colorado potato beetle, which is one of the things that commonly, you know, potato plants are commonly infested with. I read something that gave me a peace of mind. This is on the Farmer's Almanac. It said something along the lines of, you're going to get them, basically. You know, you can, you know, sure, you can do things like change out your soil. But if you're growing potatoes, they're going to enter your garden at some point. I think it was written like, even if they have to march from Colorado, they're going to get to your garden.
Yeah.
So you do things to try to hedge it off, right? We talked about planting potatoes earlier. To get them up and out earlier. And so while I don't know for sure, and I will never know, this last container of potatoes would have taken the brunt of the Colorado beetle. You know, like once that thing started, it was the plant the other plants were further along in their growth before this kind of thing took over. So who knows? But I mean, I think it's endless. You know, I think that you, as we've been talking about this year, your time to plant things, certain things, is a bit longer than we had thought initially. You know, so you talked about like being able to get in the garden and plant some things in January. I think this opens up the types of things that you can continue to grow. So even with my makeshift, you know, plastic covered, you know, shelving unit greenhouse in the garage that I'm gonna have to be careful not to back my car into. So even with that, I'm talking about like spinach. I'm talking lettuce. I'm not going, you know,
what I'm talking about.
Nothing else.
No.
I mean, it's just, again, nice to not, and I do eat salads throughout the winter. It'd be nice to have some fresh greens. Because I'm not going to grow watermelon in January.
No. You know, and I did exactly what you're talking about doing for years and years and years, you know, and it was just out of necessity. Yeah. But this year was like, no, we're going to do something different. And I looked at like doing the pop-up tents and stuff like that. And I was okay with it. And then I just started thinking about it, and I've done them before, and I think they're good. They don't really cut the mustard for me, you know? And so if you listen to this, I'm pretty sure the episode where we actually talk about frost protection comes out after, so you can compare what I'm saying before and after. But as we were recording that, I was continuously thinking in my head, like, you know, and I just had kept thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And the biggest thing for me was last year, you know, my cabbage and broccoli idled for 3 months in my garden, meaning there was heads of broccoli on there, but they just crept. Well, now I can get 60, 70 degree days inside of this thing. The nighttime, it will get, I'm pretty sure it gets just about as cold as it does outside, maybe a little bit warmer, unless I take extra steps. But so if I keep that in mind, I'm like, okay, we're going to have, you know, there's certain months where it gets to 30, you know, maybe 20. And if it stays 5 degrees warmer, dude, broccoli will keep growing. You know what I mean? Not only that, but then it'll get warmer faster. So the inside broccoli will bolt. I can collect the seeds from that and have my outside broccoli growing already. And I'm just using broccoli as an example. So
I think it also, for me, it starts to warm me up to getting out into the garden when it's cooler. So I had long sleeves on and a jacket. I think it was last week. Because I'm I haven't.
Damn, I was outside in my shirt off and dripping sweat.
It wasn't that cold, but that's just the way I'm built.
Most women are.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if it's that. I have girlfriends that are like, "What are you doing? How many scarves do you need?" But anywho, I was out there and I was saying to myself, "Get it out of your head. Get it out of your head," because I was just saying like, if I can't take this, if I'm uncomfortable and this isn't fun here, right? So I said that to say, obviously, as I travel back and forth in the wintertime, I almost exclusively park my car in the garage just because, to protect it against the elements. But then again, who knows? Once you listen to how it sounds, we'll see where that goes. But anyway, so that gives me an opportunity to travel from the garage to the house, check on those things. And we know everything is going to go slower, in those cooler temps. And if I could grow all the way through the year, great. But if I could get lettuce consistently in November, that's a win. And I think you also pointed out like the idea of, so now I'm running more electric in November and December, right? So I'm obviously keeping that in mind, right? And I'm in my head balancing out, well, once I get to the point of actually seeds starting next year, do I still want to be in the garage? Like, we'll see, because I'd be running lights in 2 different places. So.
Yeah.
And
with the way technology is now in LED lights, it's not a big deal. It's the heat that's going to get you because you're going to want to knock the chill off of stuff. And, and I've even contemplated with this, like, well, what if I did put a space heater in there? But I'm like, man, there's so much space. I would have to create a greenhouse inside of a greenhouse. It just to make it to where I would personally feel comfortable running something like that. And it's difficult, but their greenhouses are getting to be more affordable. So you can't get them. And I mean, like I said, this is not a professional greenhouse by any means, but its main purpose for me is extend my time. I need to landscape my yard. Well, if anybody listening to this has any idea how much it costs to landscape a yard, you will know that I was willing to buy a greenhouse in order to plant flower seeds earlier to get a jump on it so I could save that money.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I want to put a lot of salvia in my yard. Well, if I buy a pack of seeds for $3, I can get like $200 to $300 worth of salvia plants out of a pack of seeds. It's insane. Yeah. It's completely insane to think like that. But like for the amount of space that I need to landscape, it's a no-brainer. You could give me $10,000 right now and I wouldn't even put a dent in it if I was to go buy plants and do all that. And not to mention, then you have to water all that shit too. So,
yeah. So that's, I think, though, these couple of things, obviously our conversations on the podcast and otherwise, they help me work through it. So like you said, as we talked about frost protection, and I think that is next week's episode, if I'm not mistaken. As we talked about that, the wheel started turning and I said, because I didn't want to go as far as some of the steps we talked about, but I said I could take something from this. And that's all we really want to do, right? We want people to be able to take a little something from what we chat about. So,
Yeah.
I feel pretty good though. So the previous episode to this one, I re-answered your question about had garden fatigue set in, and I was saying, yep, and so like we talked about, I kind of took that week and just was real chill with it, and I feel refreshed, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to actually get my fall starts planted. I have a few flowers. So remember you convinced me to start indoors, kicking and screaming. So I sowed some seeds, mostly in
You're welcome.
July. Well, first off, I apologize on the last episode. I thanked you. We're not going to do this every week. We're going to do this all the way until next summer when you have to remind me I'm going to still be kicking and screaming.
You mean Ben Gardner had a good idea for once?
Absolutely. It was one of the best ideas. Wrap it up,
It's hard, man. It's hard to take that step.
No, it's exactly. It's the step. So as soon as I did it, it felt, so remember, just for the people in the cheap seats, starting seeds indoors, this is year 1 for me. And I have had a lot of successes, but I want to talk about one of the failures as we come up. And I just didn't want to go back to that, right? And so I did, and it felt like just, like old bag. Like I felt good being back at my little table, sowing seeds with my little marker and my little painter's tape marking off, what date I put what in. And it felt
it's something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It breaks up the monotony of going outside, because I did the same thing you did. I took last week off of social media, off the garden, off the pod. I mean, I recorded the podcast, but I didn't do anything else before. I took the whole week and just said, I'm not going to do it, and came back and was able to get stuff in the garden, get some seeds put in. I had to replant some stuff, get some seedlings put in, and it definitely energized me, and it just broke it up. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then getting the greenhouse definitely, catapulted it, but that didn't have anything to do with it. So, fatigue is a real thing.
It absolutely is. And I have also, in addition to planning to pull the tomato plant, I pulled my eggplants. I have one that's stuffed in somewhere that I just didn't feel like crawling into. So I pulled my eggplants out of the front yard, the front bed. I basically made the sacrifice for the cucamelons. I haven't pulled up the full trellis because it's intertwined with all of my other tomatillo plants. But I've basically cleared that space as well. So I felt good. I planted some flowers, and I just can't wait to your point of starting more flowers. I'm not starting any more flowers this year, but next year, like I have already in my mind, haven't started the project plan yet, but it's coming. So when it comes to the dates and around that, it felt really good to bring starts out, to harden them off, and then to plant fresh flowers that are blooming, so I have more zinnias, so it just felt good to put some new living thing into the earth at this point. So yeah. I'm back on top of it with my garden maintenance, Right. I am feeling good. I have a hell of a haul, about 6 pounds of jalapenos that I am going to be canning this week. So I pulled those out. We had rain for like 6 or 7 straight days, but only a couple of inches. Like it really wasn't, it's just damp all of that time. So I got a good time where, it was dry to harvest those. So I'm excited about making candy jalapeno peppers. So if this all goes well, look out for holiday presents.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. The only real gotcha is I felt like I closed my eyes and I woke up and it was like 40 days from your average first frost. What in the hell did that happen? But, I'm just going to brush it off. I was looking back at last year's records, meaning videos from last year, and some of the timing. And I don't know if this is true, but this is the excuse I'm going to give myself. I haven't got to the point of really understanding that the timing of it goes from really, really hot in August. Like all throughout August, it's hot for us, which is going to be like your lower 90s. And then it gets to cool, right? So we'll have consistently days in the 40s and 50s at night, So that window.
Which is perfect weather for like your fall vegetables.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. But you know what ends up happening? If I would have had, and I will next year, more starts, you're talking about like kicking butt and taking names. So quick segue.
Cool. Yeah.
Guess what I did not kill?
Kale. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, baby. It's comical the reason they were dying. Right. And this is actually a play on like the whole social media gardening episode. So I've talked a lot about this. I've shared what the plants look like, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to be there. You have to be looking down on it to figure it out. So they literally were drying out. Like not even just the soil. So remember we started with, all right, I had too much soil, right? So I was drowning them. All right. So then I pulled back and started in smaller cups, and then it's the right when they get their, like just before they get their true leaves, they start to get brittle. And so what I did this time is, and you've seen this, like I remember one of your first suggestions to me was, using, I don't know if you still do this, saran wrap to cover your starts, right? So I have a couple of containers that
It's a bitch, but I do it.
I don't do that, but I have a couple of containers that were either bought for the purpose of this, where you have like the plastic thing that holds the starter cells, and then you have the plastic cover. So I left them in there until not only did they get their, kind of their non-true leaves, but their actual true leaves. I left them in there until they got to the point where the leaves got to the top of that container, like that cover. Then I moved them into a like regular Tupperware container that had a plastic top to give them even more room to grow. They're still smaller than I would normally, like I would not buy a starter plant that size. But at this point, based on timing, I said, I'm going to put them out in the yard, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, like kale is growing in my garden. So I killed the first set that I started in like July 24th or something. It died the same way, the same painful death all of the others that died. And so I said, I'm going to try this one more time, because that's all I was doing. I wasn't like thinking like I'd actually grow kale. I just wanted to see, I need more at bats, try to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And when I noticed it started growing, I'm like, oh shit, man, like I'm going to be harvesting a lot of baby kale this year, but it's going to be worth it. So
slap a cover over it and you can be harvesting some big kale.
Well, I got a couple of them in containers, so loaded up in the garage.
And look, there's a seed company. It's Kids Seed Company. And they're in Asheville, North Carolina. And they actually grow lettuce and kale inside all winter.
Mm-hmm. What is it called again?
Yeah, just a Kids Seed Company.
Okay.
So I have determined that if I buy nothing else, I will be buying sweet pea seeds from them. Sweet pea flower seeds.
Yeah. Okay, this is the company we talked about.
I'll be buying them from them.
So,
but they do that. What are you tapping at? I don't know.
I'm saying that it's time. My stomach is growling.
It's recipe time?
Yeah.
Mid-thought. And it's time for the recipe of the day. This episode is proudly brought to you by San Diego Seed Company, a company that is dedicated to providing organic heirloom varieties of seeds for your small urban farm. That's right, you heard me. You are a small urban farmer. You provide food for your family and share with your neighbors, and they are dedicated to providing you with the best seeds for a bountiful harvest. Check them out at sandiegoseedcompany.com or on social media at, you guessed it, San Diego Seed Company. Go ahead, Batavia.
All right. So in advance of me harvesting my sweet potatoes, I want to share a uber duper simple sweet potato recipe. I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to share, once we get closer to the holidays, the sweet potato pie recipe. We'll see. I don't know. It depends on how good Ben's going to be to me. But in lieu of that...
Don't hold your breath, people. Don't hold your breath.
He has no plans on being good to me. In advance of that, sweet potatoes that are the size of baking potatoes. This is really good for. It's quite literally a stuffed sweet potato. So growing up, I never ate sweet potatoes this way. But you take your kind of palm-sized sweet potato, wash it up, you pierce it with a fork. If you want to go real kind of old school, I'd call it, put it in the oven at like 350 for 45, 50 minutes, depending on how hot you get your oven. I rarely bake whole potatoes in the oven. I normally wrap it in saran wrap, again, piercing it to let some of that moisture out. I put it in the microwave for about 5 minutes. Again, it's going to depend on your microwave, but you want to bake it or microwave it until it's soft to the touch. So for this, it's again like a baked potato. You don't want it to be firm. I don't want it to be firm. Take it out. Cut the potato lengthwise. This is where it gets fun because this is when you can add any of your normal toppings you would add to a regular white potato. So if you're really kind of ready to go in, you can add avocado slices. And you can add that in lieu of butter, right? Because there's a certain creaminess. If you're not a fan of avocado, go ahead and put the butter on there. You can also do things like hot peppers. Right. If you're making a meal out of it, I would add some black beans, which complements the sweet potatoes really well. And so you could also do if you wanted to, I've never done it because I don't think the flavors work, but you can add some cheese to it. But I'm never going to say never because that recipe that I gave some time back, and Purple Thumb Gardener said add cheese to it, and she was right. So you could add cheese to it if you wanted. I think for the thing about the sweet potato, one of the biggest things that some people don't know, but I think many do, not only if you're going to eat the inside of the sweet potato, you want to eat the skin of it too. So
damn right.
Before you do all of that, cut off any bad spots, if you have them on there so you can consume the entire thing. I've seen people even do salsa on a sweet potato.
Yeah.
So
I've done that.
I think it's really the world is yours when it comes to it. But we're definitely getting it. I mean, it's nutritious and more nutritious than a white potato. Although, again, white potatoes are in my top 5. And that's just the way life is. But yeah, man, I'm hoping that I'm going to dig out at least one sweet potato so I can eat it this way. If I dig out more, my family will have sweet potato pies. I've already told my mom if I don't get any sweet potatoes out of these bags, it's going to be a sad Thanksgiving. I'm not going to go to the store and buy any. I will not. So there you have it.
Damn right. You shouldn't.
Yep.
You shouldn't. So I'm going to have to, I can't do that recipe.
No. Is it texture?
I know. I only eat sweet potatoes one way and one way only.
There we go. And what way is this?
What do you mean, here we go?
You're just so forceful about things. Like, I'm only going to eat it this one way.
I'm a sweet potato purist. I only bake them, and I don't even cut them. I just eat them whole.
Yeah.
So that's just how I've always eaten sweet potato. I don't really do sweet potato pies or yams or any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime, because you could do something like adding like cayenne pepper to it to make it a little bit spicy. There are a bunch of things you could do to it, but everything you do to it basically alters the flavor, right?
It does. And a sweet potato I think is one of the most perfect vegetables you can get.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you on behalf of the sweet potatoes. I speak for them.
That and watermelon.
Did I tell you
Watermelon's
about?
one of the most perfect fruits
I keep on forgetting to.
I don't even want to talk about the mango melon.
Well, first off, we should, since you've mentioned it. I keep on forgetting to find a package of seeds for that watermelon that I planted so I can throw them out. That one itty bitty watermelon, no good. So mango melons are done, but I saved.
Are you going to grow them next year?
Damn right I am. Look, next thought was
even though it doesn't taste like mango?
Absolutely.
So here we go. Since you saved the seeds and you're going to grow them next year, I give you full permission to change the name so it is not misleading.
If I send you seeds, will you grow mango melons with me?
If you send me seeds, I'll grow them.
Done.
Damn it.
So check this out.
But I'm not calling it mango melon.
Well, I mean, you know what? You can do what you want, but I'm going to tell you that So Good, my neighbor called me and said, "Got any more of those melons?" So I still have some seeds from the original package because melon seeds, man, they give you like 4, right? But I saved a bunch, right? I mean, dozens of them, and I said, let's see if they germinate. They had a better success rate germinating than the marigolds seeds that I saved. So they're actually in the grow room now. They're just getting their true leaves. So I just wanted to see how it would go. Obviously, we aren't going to get to the point of where it produces fruit. But I am very close to my first honeydew melon. I've been watching it like a hawk. Those bastards take a long time. How dare you talk about
that on this show? And the people who are longtime listeners know that we do not talk about honeydew melons on this show. How dare you?
Because I wanted that reaction.
All applications for co-hosts can be sent to
I wanted that
the
reaction.
backyard gardener on Instagram.
I have high hopes for it too, man. It's like the perfect size. Like I'm looking at it like, is that? I'm literally stepping on my milk crates. You know, I have milk crates all throughout the garden because I use them for various things. I'm stepping on the milk crate like I want to catch it because I've had a bunch of cantaloupe that I've like gotten to too late. Right. You know, so yeah, I mean, things are going well, I think, overall. Melons are doing well.
I didn't even talk about what's going on in my garden.
Yeah, I mean, because when you didn't talk, I just kept on talking. I did pull my beans, though.
See, my beans are still producing. I got 2 cans worth of beans today. But, you know, I'm seriously, like, my whole garden looks like nothing ever grew there. It's all restarted.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm playing the waiting game now, which is actually really nice. So, you know, I'm managing pests at this point, but as it gets cooler, they'll go away. So I think I'm due to give it another squirt of some neem oil today. I got something chewing on my green beans pretty hard, though.
I thought about you yesterday because I put some of my kale starts out.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, no. Let me finish. So I put some of my kale starts out and some of my spinach starts. Again, this is last week. And I came back around and I'm like, the places that I put them, I raked the mulch, the wood chips to the side, planted them, and a couple of them have been eaten up. And you know what? I'm going to stand by roly-polies, man.
I don't know, man.
I know. I thought about you and I said, he doesn't know. I'm telling him it's the roly-polies.
I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm just not convinced. They're just such an innocent, sweet little creature that every child loves and adores and loves to touch and then thump it and let it roll around. I just don't believe that it can be evil.
I think every child that's and then squished a roly-poly because it's one step closer to retaining my starters. Yeah, that's what it is, man.
Yeah. You know, to be quite frank, I've had a lot of issues getting seeds to germinate because it was so hot. We just started getting into like the upper 80s, which seems like it's hot, but if you compare that to the upper 90s, that's a big difference. So, and our nights are starting to get down into the 70s. So things are, I think I'm good. You know, I think like I have this planting schedule that my extension service put out. And I think I need to alter it a little bit. And I think that by, you know, hopefully it'll work and we can it'll be altered enough now to see. But, I've had a lot of issues with like getting the seeds to actually germinate and, we'll see how it turns out. But that wood mulch, that shit's coming out of my garden stat.
So like, I do want to take a moment and I'm just, as long as I got the free mulch guy, I have I can count on one hand the times I've pulled weeds this year. Maybe 2 hands. Like when I say like actually going back to pull up. So it's definitely effective, but for me, since it's free, and I think if it's a smaller investment, I'm not going to bother about trying to conserve these wood chips, right? So I'm raking it aside and, for the wood that's still kind of whole in a sense, I'll put it in one of the million buckets I have because it's a whole deal trying to figure out where to put it and all of that. I move
it to my flower garden, my flower beds and stuff. I've been totally removing it and putting in flower beds.
That's what I'm doing with the potato dirt. So I have been using the potato dirt in some containers that I'm growing some like leafy greens in because that's supposed to be safe. But I'm also using it for flowers. I've been trying to, and if folks out there, especially those, my container garden tribe, for those people, talk to me about what you're doing when it comes to this soil because that is an expense. And how you're using the soil and how you're amending it. I have a couple of things that I'm doing. Last year I had like 3 or 4 garbage bags of garden soil that I ultimately kind of spread around the garden in various containers. And so since I'm always going to grow flowers because that's how I roll, I do want to make sure I get the most out of this soil.
Yeah, it's well, actually I didn't even tell you what I'm most excited about the greenhouse for.
What?
I'm excited about planting a flower in there in the wintertime.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, because, winter gets very drab.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to have some color, even if it's just like a couple pansies or just something that you can go in there and admire. I look forward to that. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm super, obviously I didn't even talk about my garden all the time. I just talked about that, but I'm excited about that. And, my flower game this year was successful on a complete amateur level. So I definitely learned a lot, and next year will probably be just as much of a technical failure, hopefully with just little improvements here and there. So it depends on what I can get to grow from seed. You know what I mean? Our garden center is going to have their 50% off sale soon.
Oh, okay.
So we'll go up there and stock up. But, we always do that. But when I do that, it's like hit or miss if it makes it or not. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I wonder if they're this season's flowers, bulbs and all. Or are they selling some old stuff?
It's everything from this year. So, they just can't keep it for the winter, so they got to get rid of it. But, I got a free black-eyed Susan off the side of the street, too. I was pretty happy about that.
Cool. Yeah. They're durable flowers, perennials, too. Hey, listen.
Yeah, that was
I have the feeling like you're wrapping up, and I need to ask you something.
Go ahead.
Where are you getting garlic from?
Not on what you tagged me on Instagram. That's one thing. But I don't know, man. I've grown garlic from the grocery store before.
Have you?
So I could very well do that, or I'll probably try and go to like my garden center and get the garlic. I don't know what I'm going to do yet.
Yeah.
I haven't decided. I still have time. I mean, I still have 2 months before I need to plant my garlic.
Yeah, I have a little bit of time too. And I'm still torn between, I'm still a little bit apprehensive when it comes to ordering things online like this. Seeds I've come around to that, obviously, clearly. But when it comes to those things, I actually am going to send an email to the place where I bought the potato seeds, because one of them clearly did really well, but the other variety didn't do well at all. And obviously there is a bunch of user potential issue and error in it. Yeah. But, you just never know. It's, I'm curious if they've received feedback when it comes to that particular variety. But I said that to say, I mean, every place that I would consider reputable is sold out when it comes to, garlic. So
I think the best bet for something like that is to try and get it locally. Honestly, I think that's really, I know when I lived up north, there was, we always shopped at this one place, and they always had it. So we would go up there and get it. But my God, they charge a lot for it. And I think I actually one year ended up just sticking what came from the grocery store in the ground and got garlic.
Yeah, so, I think I went to, again, Menards when I was getting the shelving, and they're the place that I got, it's a home improvement store, right? So they're the equivalent of Lowe's and Home Depot. And they're the place that I got like the super cheap starter trays. They're a place that I got the russet seed potatoes. They had them out and a lot earlier than other places were shipping them. And so I said to myself, I think maybe I've seen garlic there before. So I asked one of the associates, and the funniest thing, she's basically like, she's like, garlic powder? Because they sell kind of household stuff too. I'm like, oh, no, garlic, the plant. And like the certainty when she's like, oh, no, that's past. Like basically she knows that they don't have any plants to plant, like vegetable plants anymore. So she's just put it all in the same category in her mind. I didn't even bother saying, well, no, actually they would be in the store this time of year. Maybe you guys don't carry them, but this is the time of year.
Well, a lot of times you'll find them tucked in a corner somewhere.
Yeah, I explored the store. Yeah. So that was just one of their locations. So I'm going to poke around a little bit further. You
should go to like an actual nursery.
Yeah, I'll give it a try, but the ones in my area that have been tried and true, I mean, they've really been impacted with what they've been putting on the shelves this year. With the pandemic, like the pickings have been thin.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, people are starting gardens. People are definitely growing food, and it's going to be interesting for next year, because everybody that started this year is going to expand next year.
I hope so.
I hope so too. But if I need a quick start because something didn't work, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a sacrifice we'll make for the community. Because for me, when it comes to the starts, so I'm trying to think. I purchased kale. I purchased collards and cabbage. I'm trying to figure out if I want to save this for our lessons learned. But
oh wait, I got something to tell you.
Yeah, my cabbage is done.
So
got nothing out of it.
My granny came to visit me, and she's 92 years old. She's the one that grew up on the farm, and I was like, she's like, I just, I got to get my hands in some dirt, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I hear you, Granny. And she's like, I got to go out and get some vegetables, and I was like, hold that thought. I was like, what you gonna grow? She was like, I need to grow some collards, mustard, and some turnip greens. And I said, I got you. So I went in there and I got some seeds for turnip greens and mustard. And I was like, here you go. I was like, well, we're gonna have to share the turnips now. So I was like, I'll get a little bag for them. And I had the mustards, and I was like, you can just have all the mustards. And she's like, just mix them all together, honey. And I was like, what you talking about? She's like, I'm just going to throw them out there and let them grow.
I love every bit of it. Yeah.
So then I went and I had some collards that I'd started, and I was like, because she's not gardening as much, very, very little. She's 92 years old.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll give you some collards. I had a 6-pack that I had grown, and I was like, how many you want? And she's like, whatever you can give me. So I was like, well, you want all of them? She was like, no. I was like, well, here, how about 2? She's like, well, I want you to have some collards too. And I was like, I already got collards in the garden, and I got 4 collards. She's like, well, I just want you to eat. I want you to have your collards. And I was like, Granny, I love you. I want you to have these. You would have thought that I wrote her a check for $1 million.
That's classic
she was just
grandmother.
As happy as she could be.
No, the classic grandmother part is, well, no, I want you to have some too, right? Oh, that's the sweetest thing.
And so we were like walking around, and I was giving her a tour of the gardens and stuff. And I said, and this is my butternut squash. She's like, what's that? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's that? She's like, I never had that before, because she's country, country North Carolina. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, I showed her what one was. I was like, here, I'll give you one to take home. She's like, well, you don't have enough for yourself. I was like, Granny, come with me. I opened my cabinet. I was like, I got 25 butternut squash in here. She's like, I'll take one then. I was like, all right. She's like, how do I cook it? So I had to tell her how to cook it and everything. I hadn't talked to her yet. I don't really talk to her on the phone because she's kind of hard of hearing, and I get tired of yelling at her. Yeah. But she's going to go. I bet she ate the shit out of it too. Because she goes to her families. They still have farms and stuff. She'll go at the end of the year and get like peas and stuff like that. She'll shell. 92 years old shelling peas. That's a hard job.
Yeah. I've told you this. When it comes to one of my horrid memories of gardening as a child, there are 2. One, when I had to go use the bathroom in the wild in the garden, because my grandfather was like, we're not going to drive back home. Like, take that girl over there. It was probably like, take that gal over there. And my grandmother has my hand real tight, and I just know there's going to be a snake. I'm definitely like 6 or 7 or something like that. So that's one memory. And the second memory is how my friends on the block. So I grew up in an era where you went out and played outside, and you had all of the friends that were your age or near your age, right? And so I could hear them playing outside as I was either on the front porch or on the side of the house, like, in a chair, shelling peas and beans and things. Yeah. That had been gotten out of the garden. So those were not moments where I said, I want to do what produced this, which again is the irony in years and years later. It's like, hey, I could put a garden here. I could shell peas instead of going out and playing.
Yeah, you could do it.
The only thing I can say, though, is I go into the bathroom in my home if I have to use the bathroom now in the garden. So there's no, there's no like going out there. This gal doesn't go into the corner,
Oh, you're missing out on life.
Yeah, I'm pretty particular about where I drop trowel around the garden. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've seen my space. There's plenty of room, so it's funny. I'll take David out there, my son, and he'll be out there and he'll be like, "Daddy, I gotta go potty." I'm like, all right. I'm like, can you make it now? He's like, no, I think I'm just going to go in the woods, Daddy. I'm like, go ahead then. He's like, you want me to find a weed to kill? And I'm like, yeah, go find a weed to kill. Because, pea will kill a weed in the grass and stuff. So I'm like, go ahead.
Say what you find.
He loves it. So
you realize that he says Daddy at the beginning and the end of all of his sentences?
You've heard him do that?
Yeah. It's so cute. So cute.
Yeah. Daddy, I got to go pee, Daddy. Yeah, he does. He sure does. He's funny, man. It's, he's into planting in the garden, kind of. And he's definitely into harvesting, but I can't get him to connect to like the whole package, and I think it's just an age thing. Yep. So, he went out there and helped me put in that shitty irrigation system I have, which I'm still not impressed with, but nothing's died from it. So okay.
That's a positive, especially with how hot it still is there. So, I still have your town on my weather app. And every now and again, I'll actually, instead of it defaulting to Chicago on the main screen, it'll pull up the listing of them. And I'm like, man. Because I was jealous earlier in the season when you guys were so warm. But then when it was getting blazing hot, I'm just like, suckers.
Dude, it was brutal this summer.
Yeah.
You wait until January. You'll probably be jealous again. I have yours on mine too. And it's not very impressive in the summer, but in the wintertime, I'm going to be watching it like a hawk.
Yeah, because right now it shows you're 81 and I'm 75.
No, we're a little higher than 81 today.
Yeah.
The internet apps have been off by about 8 degrees this year, I've noticed.
Interesting.
It's really annoying.
Yeah.
Really annoying.
Well, I'm still gardening.
But I'm a gardener. Well, hell, I might be gardening for the rest of the year. I don't know.
I'm excited for you. I can't wait to talk about this.
I'm nervous, man.
Yeah.
I'm super nervous.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I might be able to get some good Brussels sprouts, though.
If we're saying like goals, we're setting goals for the greenhouse. That's one of them.
Brussels sprouts is for sure.
Because we talked about how long they really need, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm all in on Brussels sprouts right now, right?
Oh,
I have 12 Brussels
sprouts.
I have 12 planted right now.
Oh my!
I went all in. I said, you know what? I'm not even gonna play games anymore. I pulled all the guns out, all the weapons. I'm hitting it. I got the gnomes out there
like
patrolling every
Wick
night.
Garden episode update. Yeah.
Oh, I got the John Wick gnome out there. He's going at it hard. They got crushed by some kind of insect. I sprayed them. They're coming back. They're starting to grow. So, because I had some stuff that I started by seed, like chard, and it just stopped growing.
Yeah, my
Have
chard.
You ever had that?
Yeah, actually, it did it this year. So
I'm about to enlighten you.
Well, two things. One, Ford Hook chard is like, it's recommended if you don't grow it and you. This is my recommendation for when it's too hot to grow lettuce, because it's much milder than any other chard. So my rainbow chard, which is beautiful, which is most times a little bit more earthy, if you will. It is like continuing to stay as baby chard. It's been planted a while.
I had that this year, and it stayed from the time I planted it in April until August when I pulled it up. It didn't grow at all.
Well, mine's
Not
grown.
one bit.
I direct seed it like in June, but it's dwarf size compared to the Ford Hook chard. And I'm okay with it because it's actually better when it's younger. But I don't even know if I can consider it younger because the leaves are technically still old. They're just small.
So I looked it up though, because for seedlings and stuff, and it's an air issue.
Oh.
Yeah, the roots aren't getting enough air.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's something that I was pretty surprised about, and it was from what I understand, that's a watering issue. So like, I guess if you obviously if you over water, you can get root rot. You know what I mean? Like, that's obvious. But if you water too much, then the air or the soil gets too compacted, then it won't get air to the roots, which will cause it to do that. So I'm like, great, because I had some things that just stunted.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be, you describe a thing and then I force fit my problem into it. So my oldest garden bed, so all of my garden beds that are in the cage, baby, they're technically the oldest. That's where I first started growing. And for years I grew without them actually being in beds. I just grew in the soil. But when it comes to the raised beds that I have, the oldest raised bed I have is in the backyard on the concrete patio. And every year I'm adding soil to it. You know how that goes. It washes out of the bottom of it, right? And this particular bed, it's bed number 13. I noticed once I dug a bit, I've worked this bed up like 4 times this year. Finally finished planting in it, last week. But the soil that's about 3 inches down is very not quite muddy. It's crap soil. Like if I would have never shoveled this into my garden. Very kind of dry and like mud chips almost. And so this is the same bed where my chart is. So some of it's doing fine. The Ford Hook chart's doing fine, but the rainbow, the ruby red is what it actually is called, isn't so much. And so I was looking at it saying to myself, I topped the bed off and I'm saying to myself, shit. I mean, am I really going to have to really turn this over? I might have to pull this soil out. So right now stuff is growing. We'll see. I have the rosemary that's, come back from last year. But you may be onto something when it comes to my chart because it's the same or these seeds are probably 2 years old. I mean, they germinated and grew, but I don't know. I
don't think that 2 years is too much for chard,
I would hope not.
Because that's a mighty big seed, too. Yeah. That's crazy how big the seed is. I don't think that's an issue. I think, I don't know. I mean, and that's the problem with this stuff is you could chase your tail trying to diagnose an issue. But, I definitely had some seedlings this summer that just did not grow. Yeah. And I kind of had the same thing in the winter too. So I don't know. I mean, that was part of the reason why my tomatoes went out small and everything else. And the other thing was my seed trays that I used they weren't big enough.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So that was definitely an issue, but we'll see what happens. I know that my chard in the garden though did not do anything. It should have at least bolted. It didn't die, but it just didn't do anything. It just sat there and looked at me like you're an idiot and there's nothing you can do to change me. So it was frustrating.
Yeah, but, I'm not going to troubleshoot it any further. I'll be honest with you. So
I'm done troubleshooting it. So anything you got to tell the good people?
Check me out on YouTube for my collard green harvest, as well as my white potato harvest. There are a couple of videos out there for that. If you aren't starting a fall garden yet and you still have 4 to 6 weeks before your first frost date, do it now. My very last update, if you haven't started a fall garden yet, start planning your spring garden, because I am.
Planting or planning?
Planning. N-N-I-N-G for spring.
Okay.
Planting.
There you go, people.
T-I-N-G for fall, if you still have time.
You heard it first from Queen Batavia, the queen of all gardens, the queen of flowers, the queen of bees.
There she is.
Just the queen of queens. And for me, stay tuned. I got a big announcement, hopefully coming to a streaming service near you in about a month, hopefully. We'll see. Weather dependent on this as usual for gardening. But otherwise, everybody stay cool. No, actually, you know what? Warm up. Get out there and work in your garden. Dig a little bit.
Sweat.
Love it. Break a sweat because it's going to get cold soon. And if it already is cold, my condolences to you. But you can make it happen because the next podcast coming out will tell you about that. And what is the next podcast after that one, Batavia? Because you are the queen of all scheduling.
Clearly, because you know what I have it in.
I know. You have it in this massive spreadsheet that you apparently have access to in multiple places.
I'm so excited about this one. So after frost protection, which is next week, we have... What did we love about our gardens this year? Wait.
There it is.
Oh.
There it is. So in frost protection and what did we love about our gardens next year? Some people will love a lot and some people won't. We'll have to find out. Until next time, we'll catch you guys later.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to us today. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Backyard Gardens Pod, and we share gardening tips and clips from the show. And we would love to see your gardens and share them with everybody. So if you want to join us and you want to share your gardens, feel free to use the hashtag BYG Podcast. And if you want to see us on video, you can find us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we have the full show and clips and all the recipes broken down for you. And until next time, learn to grow and grow for change, and we're going to call it a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.